Good afternoon and welcome everybody to today's class, which is the Winsor Newton Moonflower class. My name is Tim DePack and I'm from Winsor Newton and I'll be your moderator today. I'm being joined by Shealeen Louise, who will be your artist instructor for today's class. And Shealeen will be taking you through today's class by providing information about the products being used and showing you how to perform some of her favorite watercolor painting techniques, all while creating this beautiful Georgia O'Keeffe inspired Moonflower using the Winsor Newton Cotman Watercolor paints. She'll also give you a sneak peek of her upcoming classes in March, later this month, which will be a tulips class, and also her next one after that in May, which will be a strawberries class. There was a sketch outline that was made available before this class. We can drop that link in there for those of you who want to print that out. And also, upon completion of this class, there'll be a survey that'll be emailed to you. We ask that you please take a look at that and fill that out and let us know how we did in the class and if there's any future projects that you'd like to see Shealeen perform. Please feel free to follow along with Shealeen or sit back and relax and enjoy the class. And with that, I'll pass it over to Shealeen.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's really good to see you today. I finally got my studio set up, so now I'm not sitting against a blank white wall, which is kind of exciting for me. So as Tim mentioned, today we're going to be painting this Georgia O'Keeffe inspired Moonflower. So Moonflower they're actually all over the place here in New Mexico, and Georgia O'Keeffe lived in New Mexico just like I do. So as soon as Tim kind of pitched the idea of choosing a female artist to take some inspiration from, I knew we had to do Georgia O'Keeffe. So what's going to be a good challenge about this class is we're going to be painting a white flower on white paper, which is tricky because white on white doesn't show up super well. So I got a few tricks for you, and hopefully this will be something that everybody can take something from, whether you're a beginner or kind of more intermediate. I hope there'll be something for you. So if we switch to overhead view, I'm going to talk you through some supplies that I'm going to use today, and then we'll get started with sketching. Okay, so I'm using a size 8 and a size 5 round brush from Winsor & Newton. These are the Cotman round brushes. I'm going to use 4 different colors today. I'm using lemon yellow, burnt sienna, sap green, and ultramarine blue. And I have these paints already over here on my palette: burnt sienna, ultramarine, sap green, and lemon yellow. I'm using a 9x12 sheet of paper. This is cold press from Winsor & Newton as well. And I have a pencil and an eraser, a paper towel, and some water. So I'm going to pull my sketch into frame. And we are going to draw this freehand. If you've already sketched ahead of time, that's awesome. If you haven't, you can sketch along with me right now. So thankfully, this sketch is actually not too challenging, I don't think. I like to, sorry, too many stuff here. Okay, so I like to just kind of get my shapes before I commit to anything hard and fast. So I'm going to kind of get this general round shape for the flower face. Okay, and let's place these 3 large flowers. We don't want these leaf shapes to be too perfect. We want them to be a little bit wavy, got some nice movement to them. Draw that center vein and then some veins reaching out on each side.
And I'll ask Shealeen to hold this up when she's done so everybody at home can see it a little clearer when she's done sketching it out.
And I can actually pull it in a little bit tighter if that helps. The Ken Burns effect. Okay, and then one more leaf over here on the right side. Okay, and then I'm going to draw the stem. So we kind of have this flower base. It's kind of the base of the flower, and then it has this little part here that is more of the stem. So this is kind of the flower base, and then this is the stem. I want to make sure that doesn't look too straight up and down. I like to have some nice movement to it. And if you want to, you can go and erase some of those extra pencil lines. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then I have another small leaf over here on the right side. Notice how I hold my pencil about halfway up instead of right here. It kind of helps me to just have like a looser sketch. I'm not as like controlled. And this is how I hold paintbrushes. I'm usually about halfway up the paintbrush. Yeah, I find that it helps me just not be so controlling and tight in my illustrations. I can keep my hand a little loose, a little more relaxed. So veins on each side of that little leaf. And then last thing, I'm gonna just pull this up a little bit. I have this little bud that's kind of coming off to the left, little unopened little bud. My friend just recently gave me a seed for this plant, datura or moonflower. It's kind of a scary looking seed. It's like really pokey and sharp looking. And from what I understand, you do not want to eat any part of these flowers. It's like they're very hallucinogenic in a really horrible way. I've never tried, but I've just heard that they're kind of scary. But they are very beautiful. Okay, so I'm working on these petals. Notice how each of the petals, except for this one over here, they all have a little point to them. And these two actually have a point so far as it almost looks like a little hook on the edge, just on the center of the petal.
For your seed, Shealeen, someone said to make sure that you file the seed before you soak it in the water. So they're helping you out for when you plant it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's one of those like really like kind of abrasive seeds that you have to like really work to get it to germinate or whatever. It's interesting. They kind of they're so beautiful and I really like them, but they definitely they have like kind of this like wild like kind of scariness to, I don't know if that's the right way to describe it, but they kind of spook me a little bit. I don't know if I do want to grow them. I love to see them, but what's really beautiful about them is that they only bloom early and well, they bloom at night and then so in the morning when you come out, you'll see the flowers are huge and open, but then throughout the day, they just fade. Okay, so there's a little stamen in the center there. And then I think this is the last detail I'm going to draw. So each one of the petals has two center lines, kind of veins reaching up towards the center. So get those placed. You don't have to overthink this. Keep your arm relaxed as you're drawing. Okay, so this is the moment. I always try and just look at it as a whole, see if it feels balanced, see if things look proportional. My sketch is not, these two sketches are not identical to one another, but they both feel good in their own ways. So I'm happy with it. So I'm going to just erase a few of these little pencil markings. Just a note here, this is an important note, because we're going to be painting white, because this is going to be very, very light, these petals, we're not doing a ton of layers. Erase all the pencil markings you can. Anything that's unnecessary, like if you have like a bunch of scratchy lines, kind of like I do here, just get rid of them, because the more, the lighter your painting is, you know, the more you will see those pencil markings. And sometimes it's just impossible to get all the pencil markings. People ask me all the time how to get rid of pencil markings. I can give you recommendations on a type of pencil or a type of eraser, but at the end of the day, it's just always going to be there a little bit. So just try your best to work from a kind of clean sketch as best you can, especially when you're painting light colors like this. Okay, so that looks good. I'm going to put my sketch aside and I'm going to get some paints ready to go. So using my smaller brush, I'm going to do a mixture of ultramarine blue. And this is going to be a very watery mixture. So bring a lot of water to your palette. And let's get a mixture of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. And since burnt sienna, which is kind of an orange color, and blue are on opposite sides of the color wheel, when you bring these two colors together, they basically just destroy one another and cancel out into something that's more of a neutral tone. So if you have a little bit more burnt sienna, it's going to feel a little warmer, more of a brown. And if you have more blue, it's going to feel more like a blue-gray. So find the color that you like right in between those two. I want more of a blue. I don't want it to be too brown. I prefer, if I'm going to try and create a shadowy shade, which is what I'm doing here, I prefer that to be more on the blue side than brown side. But I guess it depends on the painting. So lots of water, lots of water. I'm just bringing it, dumping it over here. And we start light, and we build in layers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start slowly creating some shadows on these petals. So I'm thinking I want like where there's petals overlapping one another, I'm going to start dropping just a little bit of this blue shade on the edge of some of these petals. Just a little bit of that color, not too dark. I don't want to cover the the petals. I'm not going to make all of them this shade. I want some spots to still be kind of a true white that is untouched. But around the edges, especially the edges that are not touching a leaf. Does that make sense? So if it's the petal leaf edge against white background, go ahead and just drop that full color right there. Same over here. Because this is going to be against a white, not against a leaf. The leaf is going to help create some dimension. I'll go ahead and show you. So notice that wherever the leaves are against, wherever the petals are against the leaves, it's just super easy to make the petals pop. But here's where we can kind of lose some of that definition. So don't be afraid of dropping a little bit of that ultramarine burnt sienna mixture on the edges of these petals. And you'll find that as this starts to dry, it's going to dry really light, and that's good. We don't want it to be too dark. We can add lots of dark shades in a little while. We always want to start gradually and then slowly build up some of the drama. I think that that's a great way to ruin paintings really quickly, is to add too much drama too fast.
I love how you're able to make white on white. That amazes me when you see that by, and the colors that you're choosing, you would never think blending them together is going to give you that white color coming out of it.
And the trick is really the water. Like it's how much water you're using. So if you're using a bunch of water, it's going to really, what's the word I'm trying to say? It's going to lower the value of these colors. So we're just using the tiniest bit. We're using probably 95% water, 5% paint. I don't think that's an exact number, but that's maybe somewhere in there. Okay, so now I'm going to do a little more mixing. I'm going to grab some lemon yellow. And I'm going to bring lemon yellow to the party here. So it's going to kind of create a very light kind of green color. Hopefully you can kind of see that. So this is ultramarine, burnt sienna, and a little bit of yellow, lemon yellow. And then I'm going to just start dropping this here in the center. We're going to start building up some color in the center of this flower. And then let's start reaching upwards. Let's follow these little veins we drew. See how that just deepened that color just a little bit, right where I have those pencil lines. If you want to, you can make that even a little bit darker. You can just grab those three colors and just pull them into this little puddle. And that's going to just darken the value of this puddle. And then you can drop that here in the center. This center of this flower is going to end up being quite dark by the time we're finished. So you're welcome to just go ahead and drop a little extra color value right there in the middle. But make sure to keep the stamen light. See how I haven't painted on that quite yet? I'm going to leave it white for now. Come back later. One advantage you might have if you are, if you watch this later, if you watch the replays, that you can pause it and you can let all your layers dry. You know, because we're painting in real time, I have to be really strategic about what areas we're painting so that I'm allowing sections to dry so it doesn't bleed together. So up next, we are going to do some leaves. So we're going to work on our leaves while we let this dry. Okay, so my leaf mixture here, what I want to do today is I'm going to do sap green, a bunch of it. So get some sap green going, nice little mixture here. And if you would like to, and if you've ever painted with me before, you know that I really like warmer green shades. I'm going to actually grab a little bit of burnt sienna, maybe 10%. You don't have to do this if you like your sap green the way it is. But these leaves are really dark and really dramatic, very, very dark. So I'm going to mix some burnt sienna in with my sap green. Like I said, maybe 90-10, maybe more like 75-25, whatever you want to do. All right, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch brushes actually. I'm going to switch over to my 8 brush. And I'm going to just go ahead and paint all of my leaves. I'm not going to paint this bud, and I'm not going to paint the base of this flower here, just the 4 leaves that are like the rays away from the flower. And let's go ahead and just do kind of a not too dark, but also not too, it's not as watery as the layer we did on the flower. And you should find that all of the outer edges are totally dry by now, unless you live somewhere that's super, super humid. I'm not really sure. or if you used too much water, it might still be drying. You can grab if you want to, keep up with us, you can grab a blow dryer, and then you can just put some heat on it and it'll dry super quickly. I did that the other day for the first time in years. I used a blow dryer to make a painting dry quicker. And I was like, dang, I should be doing this more often. It works so fast. All right, there we have it. And then I'll paint this little one over here. So I have a little story about Georgia O'Keeffe. In 2018, my husband and we actually got engaged here in New Mexico, but we were actually living in Nashville. So we came out here, we were visiting my family, and we got engaged here, and it was just such a great time. And we were like, should we move to New Mexico? Like, maybe we should move here. And we were talking about it. And I was like, I was on board, but then as soon as we went back to Nashville, reality kind of, I don't know, hit. And I was like, no, like we got a life here and I don't want to leave Nashville. We have friends and community, and I don't know if I want to move back to New Mexico. And Dan was really sad because he had his heart set on moving here. And one day I was driving around and there was I think it was NPR, and it was this old interview with Georgia O'Keeffe from the 70s. And she was talking about living in Abiquiu, New Mexico. And she was talking about how amazing it was and how much inspiration there was for her as an artist. And she was just going on about how much she loved New Mexico. And then she was like, okay, but I want to stop now because it's going to make people want to move here, and I don't want them to move here, because she liked how remote it was. But there was something about hearing that interview with her that like really sparked something in me to want to move back to New Mexico. And I remember I told Dan about it, and that was one of the things that actually ended up bringing us back to New Mexico, and in some way maybe helping me see how much beauty there really is here as an artist, because I paint flowers, and it's not the most flower filled place you've ever seen. It's not like Oregon where there's just so many wildflowers, but there is New Mexico has its own botanical beauty if you have eyes to see it. And if I'm being honest, I didn't see it for a really long time, but now I do. So that's my Georgia O'Keeffe story. She's a big part of the reason that I'm back here. And I'm very glad to be. I was telling Felicia right before our class started today that I have right next to me all of my garden starts, because this year we really want to try our hand at some gardening. So I have all kinds of vegetables. I have some herbs. I have some flowers. I have some bishop's lace, which is like Queen Anne's lace. I'm so excited. So, okay. Lots of rambling, but I guess that was a good amount of time there. So now I'm going to let these leaves dry, and I'm going to paint the base of this flower and then the base of this one. So I'm going to just grab a little bit of lemon yellow. And here's a quick note, just an observation in nature. Whenever there is new green, whenever there's something that's just newly, and a lot of you probably know this, but if you don't, it's okay. Newer growth is going to be more on the yellow side. Okay. So it's going to be a little bit lighter, a little bit more of that fresh green color. So just add a little bit of yellow, the lemon yellow, and let's go ahead and just paint this right here. You might want to switch to your smaller brush here, whatever has the smaller point. And then the same thing down here.
You were just talking about the color of the yellow. I was just envisioning your May class coming up with the strawberries, because you have the newly grown strawberries in there, and they're that yellowish tint to them. We'll see this technique and this color scheme again later on in that class as well.
Yep, you guys stay tuned. I'm excited to show you guys our upcoming classes. I got them right here out of frame, but I'll show you in a little bit. Okay, so this is feeling good. Let me think here. This center should be pretty dry. Mine feels a little bit cool, but it feels dry. So I know I can work here. So I'm gonna switch to my smaller brush. And I'm gonna grab just lemon yellow as best I can. It's kind of surrounded by green paint, but that's okay. So grab some lemon yellow. And let's go ahead and paint the stamen in the very center. If you find that your color is bleeding together right here, just grab a paper towel, blot it. It'll lift out what just happened, and then just finish letting it dry, and then you come back and do that in a little while. And I think that up here for me is dry enough that I can do the same thing. But if it's not totally dry, just come up really close to it, but don't actually touch these two colors together. And just go ahead and drop a tiny bit of this lemon yellow here on this unopened bud, okay? Not too much paint. Make sure your brush is a little more on the watery side. If it's not, just rinse it in water really quick and then use whatever is on the paper and just smooth it around just a little bit. All right. So I'm taking inventory for just a second here. All right, so now we're going to do a little more color mixing. Come back to your burnt sienna and ultramarine blue mixture. And we're going to do a darker mixture this time. We did the really light one earlier for the petals, but now I want to do a really dark one, and I want you to go heavier on the burnt sienna side. I want this to be more of a true brown, like a warmer color, okay? So go, I would say 75% burnt sienna, 25% ultramarine blue. Okay, and then once you have a good amount of paint there, I want you to go ahead and just paint the stem here at the very bottom. Isn't that awesome? You just mix two colors and you get something totally different. Easy enough. So that's all we're going to do for that. Okay. So I'm going to come back to my sap green mixture, which actually kind of, I used it all. So get some sap green mixed. You can grab a little bit of the burnt sienna if you want to. You could even grab a little bit of blue if you want to. You could do whatever mixture you want to, or you could just use sap green, just the pure form of it. But what I want you to do here is just make sure that you're mixing something that's very strong, like a very intense, strong mixture, because we're about to start finally adding some dark colors to our painting. I guess this was dark, but we're going to add some dark to the leaves. So I'm going to start up here at the top, and I'm going to just go along this center vein. And I'm using my size 5 brush, and I'm just kind of haphazardly dropping color along those lines, nothing too perfect. And go ahead and drop a little bit around the outer edge of the leaf in just a few spots. And go ahead and also drop some just where the petal and the leaf meet, where there might be some shadow. And then I want you to grab your other brush, dip it in water, blot it, and then we're going to use that brush to smooth out the mess we just made. And we're going to use that to just kind of gently coax that color, move it around. We're going to kind of feather out those hard lines. one trick I really enjoy using is I like to squint at my painting. And when I squint at my painting, it helps me to not see as much detail, which is actually kind of nice. It helps me to just look at the composition as a whole and just look at, see like, oh, that maybe I need to move that color a little bit more there. Maybe I need to lift out some color. That's a big part of my process is squinting at my painting. And I think it kind of works in the same way that for oil painters, when they step back from their paintings, when you're working on something large, you can step back from it. But when you're sitting down painting, squinting is a good way to get that same technique. So I'm just dropping a little bit more now, just a little bit of dropping, a little bit of smoothing. Maybe I'll put a little bit more dark color up here, just along this edge. And when I have that like mixture of light and dark green, it really helps to make the leaf look like there's some movement to it, doesn't it? Like these ones look like they're just flat, but this one looks like it's on a different plane. Like it looks like it's further away from the leaf or from the flower. It looks like there's a little bit of bubbling happening in a way. Like maybe some of these were, in between these veins, it goes up and then, how a leaf looks in nature. All right, let that dry. And I'm going to come over here to this side, do the same thing to this smaller leaf off to the left. So one brush to drop color, one brush to smooth it out. Same thing down here. And then I'm going to go just underneath these petals. Start to kind of create that shadow that creates a little bit of separation between the petals and the leaves. It pushes the leaves into the background just a little bit. And then I'll smooth it all out.
You're really able to see the white of the flower petals pop out now with the darker green on there. It's really making that dimension show. Very nice.
And that right there is called reverse painting. Or I guess reverse or negative painting. And so it's like when you have white against a dark background, that's like a really great trick for painting white with watercolor is to have dark. So having light set against dark. So negative painting or reverse painting. I'm going to do a little bit along the outer edge. I feel like it could use a little drama there. I'm squinting at it. I think I want a little bit more just in between or right up against the petals here. Maybe a little bit right over here on this left side.
So we have a really good question by someone in the audience. And they'd like to know, how long do you let your work dry before you frame it?
Before I frame it, well, I would say as soon as you're finished with it, you could frame it. I've framed paintings right away, but you probably want to like make sure that it's definitely not cool to the touch anymore. Because if it's cool to the touch, there's still water in the paper, even if you can rub your hand on it. So just make sure that if you put your fingers on the painting, it doesn't feel cool at all. Yeah, but and also I would say that when it comes to erasing as well, make sure that you're not erasing until it feels like it's definitely cool to the touch. I have ruined more paintings that way than I want to admit to you because I can get kind of impatient to just be like, okay, I want to see the finished, the very, very finished step, which is after you erase the pencil. So
I think
but
one of
that
the
is
other
a
things,
good
correct, with
question.
watercolor, you put it in with a glass frame in front of it, correct?
Yeah,
And then
I usually do. Yeah,
then I don't think you really want it in direct sunlight as well, because that might
exactly. Yeah,
cause
good
it to
point.
start fading over time as well. So
It will. Yeah, I try to make sure none of my paintings, my originals, are in any direct light. And there's also some paints that will fade more quickly, like because of the light fastness of it. So yeah, just keep it out of the sun. It's a good rule of thumb. All right, almost finished with this leaf. I'm gonna add a little bit more dark color down here. Okay, now I'm gonna paint this last leaf. And I'm using my size 5 brush here. So I like to use the smaller brush for dropping color. And you can drop that darker green just underneath the petal, right where the petal and the leaf meets, create that shadow. Let's go along the edge in just a few spots, add that extra bit of darker value. All right, I'm going to smooth, and then I'll see if I want to add any more. Okay. I'm going to grab a little bit more of that burnt sienna. Just giving me that warmer green shade. Okay, maybe a little bit more up here along the center vein. Just find a few spots if you want to. You don't have to. Just make yours as exactly like mine. If you feel like yours looks good, then you don't need to do this. But I'm just kind of going back and seeing if there's spots where I want to add a little bit more as it's starting to dry. And I can really start to layer on paint. It's hard to layer on paint when the leaf is wet. So you kind of have to wait. Like right here, this is kind of wet. So it's not really letting me add the dark color that I'm able to add up here because this one's dry. So watercolor is a good way to learn patience. You really have to let layers dry and then come back to it. I'm going to go to the other two green parts of this this composition here. So sap green, and let's just do pure sap green. It'll be just fine. So I want this little base here, and then this, this green right next to this bloom. I want them both to look like they have some a little bit of a round shape to them. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to drop some sap green on the left side. You might want to use your smaller brush for this. I'll switch over. So same thing down here. Let's drop it on the left side. And then go ahead and drop this really dark mixture of green all underneath this leaf here. This is like 100% sap green that I'm dropping here. So it is like pure green, the darkest value that it pretty much can be. All right, then use your other brush. And then let's smooth that out. And we want to very gradually go from dark green to this light green. And see how that pushes that flower base back just a little bit, even further behind this leaf. So now we have three different planes. We have the flower, the leaf, and then this flower bud base, whatever this part of the flower is, I don't even know. Now that's pushed back even further. So we got a lot of dimension now. I love it. I love how you can just create just with color. It's amazing to me. Every single time I do it, I'm like, oh, so satisfying. I love to see it happen. And then same thing up here. This one's not quite as dramatic. Maybe because this one, maybe it makes sense that this part is even more in the shade than up here. So this one's a little bit lighter. Okay. Drop in a little more in a few spots. As this is starting to dry here, I can do what I was trying to do earlier. Really add some of that, those darker colors. And if you're interested in learning more about color theory, you should join me on Patreon because I talk way more about color mixing, using complementary color palettes, and we just go a little more in depth if you, and I think that link is, I think it's here somewhere. I'm not sure where it is, but yeah, if you join me on Patreon, I'd love to go a little more in depth there. All right, so that feels pretty good. I'm feeling this one. So I'm gonna leave my leaves alone for now. I say that and then I'm like, wait, hold on. A little bit more. Okay. So let's go back to our flower. We're super close here. So basically when I look at this flower, I see that I want this stamen, this center, I want that to look like it's really dark, you know, like there's a little bit more dimension to this one. So let's see here. Let's go back to that mixture we had at the beginning. So that was ultramarine. Well, it's this mixture right here, essentially, what we used for the little brown stem over here. So that's ultramarine and burnt sienna. All right, so that's going to feel like a pretty warm gray color, depending on which side you're leaning more towards burnt sienna or more towards ultramarine. Okay, so let's go ahead and drop this super dark mixture using your smaller brush. If your brush is kind of fanned at the end, use a different one. Use whatever brush you have on hand that has a really nice point, because this is definitely some fine detail that we're doing here. So you want to make sure you have the right tool for the job. I was over at my friend's house yesterday and I saw her, she had some like paint brushes that her kids used. And I was just looking at the brush tips and, you know, they were like, they were supposed to look like this, but they were like totally fanned out. And I just had this moment, I was like, oh no, one day that's going to be how some of my brushes, just kids. My grandma was always really good about making sure that we didn't use her nice brushes. She would always just be like, here, you can use these old brushes. And that was pretty smart because we would have just destroyed them. Okay, so I'm going to start reaching up into these petals just a little bit to accentuate the shadows. So remember, like between each petal, We want there to be like just a little bit of like this really light color. I went a little bit dark there. Maybe a tiny bit dark. So let's use my paper towel to block that a little bit. Bring some water here. You don't want to go too dark here as we're going up into the petals. So this center stamen can be really dark, but just don't go too dark. Maybe there's a few spots on the petals where you want to add a little bit more. Like over here. Start with just wherever the petals overlap, and then find some other spots where you might want to add a little bit. But my rule of thumb for this painting is make sure that you're adding shadow, just the lightest shadow where the two petals meet. And then you can add, if you want to add just a little bit more depth, go to the edge of the flowers or the petals. Remember, like I said, over here, wherever the white is going to meet the white, let's make that just a little bit darker, just to help the eye be fooled into thinking, oh yeah, I see that that's a flower there. There's a difference, even if it's really subtle. I'm going to grab a little bit of lemon yellow. I want that light, cool green color. I want to use that again. And I'm going to use that light adding, like, so it's the same mixture, burnt sienna, ultramarine, little bit of lemon yellow. And then just adding that little bit of lemon yellow is going to give us more of a green. And I'm just going along these veins here. Okay, good. Just making sure we still have time.
10 more minutes. Yeah.
I'm gonna grab a little bit more burnt sienna, a little bit more of this darker mixture. I'll tell you what, mixing colors, it really just opens a whole new world. I always recommend just have some fun with mixing. Don't just use the colors straight out of the tube. I mean, there's definitely some beautiful colors straight out of the tube that you can use, but I mean, you could have the most minimal palette, like this is not, we're using 4 colors, you know, but you could paint something with tons of colors just from mixing with a very limited palette, and it's so much fun. Okay. Now I'm just looking at it. I'm just seeing what it might need. I'm going to add a tiny bit more of a dark edge to this side right there. Give it more of that round shape. It looks a little incomplete. I think the flower feels good. I think if there was one thing I might want to do, it might just be to smooth out, you know, that dark to light just a little bit more. If you went too dark, you can always use your paper towel like so, and just lift it out a little bit. Smooth out some of this green just a little bit. But this is the time to just take inventory, see if there's anything you want to tweak at all. So there you have it. So here's the other one I did. So there's some differences, like this center is not quite as dark as I did over here. Obviously the composition is a little bit different. Actually, what's interesting is that these leaves were a slightly different mixture than over here. So these ones feel a little warmer. So I probably used a little bit more burnt sienna here. And then this one was maybe more of a true sap green. So you'll always get a little bit of a different combination if you try and paint the same thing twice. All right, so I'm going to pull in some upcoming classes. So this here is I'm really excited about this one. This is our upcoming tulips painting that we're going to be doing in 2 weeks, right, Tim? I think it's 2 weeks from today.
Yes, March 29th, Tuesday, 1 p.m. Central Time.
Awesome. And I'm so looking forward to this one. This is going to be a blast. We're going to do a lot of color mixing. These paints are not straight. These are not necessarily the colors straight out of the tube. So stay tuned. And then in May, we're going to do this cute little strawberry painting. And who knows, maybe God willing, maybe I'll even be growing some strawberries then, so we could have some strawberries here. That'd be awesome. I'm excited to start gardening, if you can't tell. So if anybody feels, if you're feeling confident, I would love it. I'm going to go to gallery view, and I would love it if you would show me your painting from today. And if you still need time, no worries. Maybe you can share it on social media later and just tag me. Oh my gosh, this is beautiful. I see a couple. Thank you guys. Thanks for sharing. Really nice.
So many great pieces of work on that. Great job,
Wow.
everyone.
Yeah, these are beautiful. Yeah, I love it. I love painting moonflowers, but just don't eat them. All right, speaker view. All right, everybody, thanks so much for joining us. Yes, if you want to share it on social media, just use, what are the hashtags? It's Make It With Michaels, Winsor Newton. And then if you tag me, make sure if you're on Instagram, just tag the picture itself, not necessarily the comment, because sometimes I miss those. But thank you so much for joining, and looking forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.